Good evening and welcome to another episode of Inside, episode 13. I'm Dom Hardman. I'm joined by JK and Scenario Neil, and tonight we're joined by the man who does this.
Alex Rieder getting a good head of steam up, but that has to be...
Of course, it's Mr. Alex Rieder, former Wasp player. How are you tonight, Alex?
Yeah, not too bad. Looking forward to this. Looking forward to chatting to someone else other than my missus.
You might be a compliment there. So, what have you been filling your lockdown time with then? What sort of stuff have you been doing?
So my missus is a doctor, so I've basically become a house husband, looking after her, doing a bit of cooking, cleaning, and then obviously baking, getting the pinny on and the roller out, and making sure that she's got something to come back to and make sure my hair's ready for some eye candy when she gets back from a long day of work. But no.
Oh, we don't want to know that bit. I've got mental images of you just in a
taking the naked chef literally.
Next level.
No, it's a strange time because I think it's something that everyone's trying to be really productive with and trying to really fill up their time, but then equally you don't know how long this is going to go on for. So everyone started off with a lot of gusto and a lot of energy and sort of burnt out. So my mindset was sort of try and do something that I can do every day that won't burn me out, that I'm actually quite happy to do. So sort of I'm trying to read these leadership books, trying to read them an hour or so a day. And then I'm doing an online course on negotiation, which again, I do about an hour worth, and then taking up Spanish as well. So it's all very simple stuff that it's not taking up my whole day. It probably takes up 3 to 4 hours max. And then the rest of that is just spent just doing what I really fancy, you know, maybe going for a walk or whatever, and just trying to make sure that I'm still motivated to carry on with my goals. Because as I said, sometimes you get into this mindset that you have to fill up every waking second with being productive or else you feel bad. But actually, just getting through this with a good mindset and coming through not feeling exhausted because you've burnt yourself out doing all these other things, that's a win in itself. I think everyone needs to balance in their own way. And I think people will, you know, some people will come out and they'll have been unbelievably productive. They'll come out with a load of new tools and skills, and others won't. But no one's a winner in this. It's just if you've got through with a good frame of mind and you've made it through to, you know, the end of this lockdown and going to the world and everything, you know, kickstart again, then I think that's the win in itself.
Yeah, I think with my motivation at the moment, well, the only thing I'm going to come out this with is probably 2 stone of extra weight and a podcast series. To be quite honest, but you know, it could be worse.
Yeah, I mean, someone wanted to interject there. Obviously, it's interesting you say. Obviously, everyone deals with it in their own way. You know, it's a strange time that we're in at the moment. Have you got any tips for anyone that might be struggling in lockdown? Anything that might get them out of a bad place? Any tips that keep you happy and healthy?
You know, being a rugby player, you spend a lot of time at home. Our hours in the working day weren't that long, so we managed to take up a lot of hobbies. So I watch TV series, or as I said, I take up reading, or I like to play on the Xbox now and again. So they're very basic things that I like to do just to take my mind off it. But for me, it's about speaking to friends. It's about just keeping dialogue going. Yeah, you're in lockdown and you're not able to go out, but actually I found I'm probably speaking to my mates more than I ever did with all these house parties and Zooms and all these different sort of ways to contact people. And then it's a great opportunity to speak to family. And as I said, I'm taking up a lot of cooking and baking and things like that. Just to be honest, I'm just trying to do different things. I've not got a set template because everyone will be able to do something different. And it's an incredibly trying time, but I find going for a walk and clearing my head, using the hour we have a day or whatever, just to really go on a walk. And, you know, because one thing I've noticed now is how quiet it is and how much, it might sound weird, but hear the birds chirping and things like that. And actually it's quite a soothing feeling. And actually a lot of peace and quiet. I'm really enjoying that. It's almost, you know, almost like meditating. It's very cathartic. And that's something that I really enjoy. And for me, I think that's a useful tool for everyone, getting some fresh air, making sure if you don't have a garden that you stay in your social distancing 2 meters apart, but that you're able to go for a walk and go to a park and make sure you get fresh air. And and really just sort of break up your day a little bit, because sometimes if you do stay on the sofa day in, day out, you're probably going to feel sluggish. So just making sure you break it up, be like, actually, I'm going to maybe go out and go for a walk now, or actually maybe I'm going to try some cooking, or maybe I'm going to take something up, but take a guitar or whatever, I don't know. But there's so many opportunities online for classes and languages and things like that. You know, where it's not like in the sort of the early 1900s where if this happened during the Spanish flu, you know, really what were you going to do? You know, whereas now we've got great opportunity to speak to everyone. We've got to expand your learning however you want, to really, you know, watch some great TV shows. Do what just makes you happy. Do what you've not had time to do when you're working 9 till 5 all the time. Enjoy actually some downtime and things like that. That's what I'm doing. So
yeah, you touched on obviously a lot of emphasis on like the Zoom calls, the Skype calls, the house party calls. Obviously, that's like a you know, because you can't go out and see your friends and family. You know, there's a big emphasis, and there's a bit of novelty, obviously, in the first week or two, and then it just sort of becomes annoying. Do you think that emphasis on improving communication and talking to people is going to carry on once we do eventually come out of lockdown? Because obviously, you know, we had our character pun on the other day, and he was adamant that obviously it's just a reaction, and he feels, you know, it will just drop off again. Do you think it will, or do you think it should? You know,
it's the $1 million question. Obviously, the one you hope it's going to end up as is that people do pick up the phone more. You do find that a lot of people nowadays, the younger generation, does like to say text and WhatsApp rather than speak over the phone. Whereas I've always naturally, and my friendship group have naturally been phone callers. We've always wanted to FaceTime and chat on the phone anyway. So for us, it's actually, you know, we've been using these tools like Zoom to actually get face to face, and you can play quiz, drinking games and things like that, which is fun. And you don't really do them, and you can get more of a group involved. But I think the fact that it's gone on out now for a good couple of months, and it's looking like it will be 3 or so plus months that we're in lockdown, I think that's when it instills more into people. I think if this was only a 3-week momentary thing where we've done this, then we're out, and, you know, we're cracking on as normal, I think it would be a flash in the pan. But the fact that it's going on for such a length of time, I think is instilling into people more and more the importance of it. And with that, I was an article online about how it's something like 70% of the population on this YouGov statistic they did wanted to, you know, change how we went back. They didn't want to go back to normal life because clearly it wasn't as efficient. You can do a lot of meetings over these sort of methods. You can do a lot of things working at home now, spend more time with your family. There's a lot of things that actually this has shown that we can do, and actually hopefully in a way, as you said, it's brought us more together because people might want to speak a bit more and realize that they were taking it for granted.
Definitely.
I think you hit on a good point there, and I know you mentioned it briefly, but when I was younger, certainly, you know, there was no mobiles, there was no internet, there was none of all this, you know, and we had to, like, you'd be out from, you know, between 9 in the morning till 9 at night when it got dark, and you have no phones. And I think it's interesting that you touched on this point, that it's starting to bring a bit of that back. The moment that people are told they can't go outside, they can't go and see their mates, that's all they want to do. And if this can carry on, brilliant. I think it might slip slightly, but like you said, I mean, I've never spoke to my mum as much as I have done in the last couple of weeks, which is a great thing. Hi, mum. But yeah,
that just proves a point that the one person who watches for Neil is his mum.
Yeah, does she subscribe? Is she a subscriber?
She is a subscriber. She
shares
every week.
Have to cut that out.
Please don't.
But yeah, is there anything that you're doing in terms of, you know, fitness techniques or anything, trying to keep yourself going, you know, with limited space that you've got and, you know, the time that you've got on your hands at the moment, Alex?
Yeah, so we're in an apartment, a top floor apartment, so it does become quite tough because you can't really have weights in the house because they'll go through 5 levels of floors, and next thing you know, we're down in the basement somehow.
Someone new to talk to.
Yeah, true. it's bits and bobs, so sort of HIIT classes and sort of the Joe Wicks body coach type fitness thing. But the tough thing for me really has been the fact that I had an operation start of December. So I had an osteotomy, which is a chunk of your shin bone cut out and replaced with metal rods to realign how your knee is. And then also I had an ACL replacement, LCL fix up, and my cartilage was all trimmed down. So it's quite extensive. And I required a lot of physio for it. Now, I wasn't coming back to play rugby. I'd retired, and with these operations, you can never play rugby anyway. But it was something that I needed physiotherapy with, and this has made it pretty difficult, to be honest. So when we go on these walks with me and my partner, it does start to hurt quite a lot, and there's only so much you can do body weight wise in the apartment. So I do a lot of basic balance stuff, which is always very good for your legs and stuff. Obviously, bodyweight squats and lunges and things like that. A lot of sort of hypertrophy type training, which when you've not got any weights, that's pretty much the main type of training you can do. And that's great. You can work up a bit of a sweat on, but it has been tough from a physical point of view for myself, because I need to be in a gym with the equipment and the weights to try and build up my quads and strength again and try and really build into that. But it's a minimal problem compared to what people are dealing with. So it's something I can live with.
Yeah, perfect.
So obviously, I want to take you back. Originally come from my neck of the woods. So you're Yorkshire Carnegie, spent some time at Wharfdale. Before all that, where did it all start for you?
So we'd lived down in Reading. My dad worked in Chelsea, so we'd moved around quite a lot. And so I'd never really played much rugby. Lived in the Isle of Man, Reading, Cumbria, place like that. So I'd never played rugby. Then we moved to America and played American football, things like that, and I loved it. Wow. And then when I came back, I went to a boarding school called Giggleswick, and I'd really got into the contact element of sport. I loved it. We were at that age where you were able to start melting into each other and tackling, so I really loved it. And being lucky going to a public school, I was able to play rugby. I know a lot of state schools, they don't play rugby, they play football. So it was something that I just had to do because we're forced to do it, but I also loved it. And then all your mates are playing it. So then I joined a local rugby club called North Ribblesdale. So I was playing, I was, you know, that young age when you're playing on a Saturday, you're playing on a Sunday, and you're still full of energy to play on a Monday. The
Colts 17, 18 Saturday.
Oh,
I do miss those days.
Yeah, well, I was
doing Bradford and Bingley on a Saturday, Bradford and Bingley on a Sunday, and then Bingley Grammar on a Monday.
Well, that's it. Your body just could take it. Well, that's it. So I come over. So I started playing rugby at 13. So that's when we came back from America, and it was good. It was good. Loved it. And as I said, I was playing at North Ribblesdale, and you just building such a great bond with the lads. I think one thing sport gives you, especially rugby, is a bond amongst your mates like no other. I love football, I love cricket, I love any sport. I think that's natural with any sports when they like anything competitive. But rugby, there was always that sort of intangibles around it that you just couldn't place. And it was just, you had a bond with lads because you're having to put your body on the line, and it hurts. No matter what age, things would hurt. You'd get hit in the face, you'd break your nose, you'd do whatever at a young age. It would hurt, but yet you did it because you were with your mates and you loved it. And then growing up, it built that level of respect. You had to respect refs, you had to respect coaches, and it was just a great atmosphere. And I was lucky that I played for Yorkshire County, which is obviously the best county. And it was there's no question.
I think the Billboard on top says otherwise.
No, it's no doubt my favourite county, and that's having spent quite a bit of time in Bradford because my grandparents are from there, and that I'm still championing Yorkshire, even though I've spent time in Bradford. Which, if you've never been, I don't.
My half my side of my family are in Bradford, hence why I was at Bees for a period.
Yeah, but no, I was just lucky to play for Yorkshire, and again, you met a great bunch of lads from a lot of different walks of life as well. And I've still known these lads. Some of them came, like Ben Morris. He plays for Wasps now. Went through the age group together. Chris Walker was someone I started off at North Ribblesdale with, and he was captain England. Unfortunately, had some bad injuries at the wrong time, and some really unfortunate things with his obviously dad passing away. And fortunately, it materialised. But he was a phenomenal player and a phenomenal lad, and you just met a lot of great people from a lot of different walks of life. And for me, it was just something that I enjoyed so much, not just because of the rugby, but everything it gave me. And it was something that I was just to keep progressing. So playing for Yorkshire, I went into Leeds Carnegie Academy, and I had the opportunity then to go to university. So I was at University of Leeds. So in my head, I was like, I might as well play rugby whilst I'm at university. It pays for that. I might do
Makes
both.
sense, yeah.
And then, and then by the time I was about to finish up university, I was 22. And Wasp came in and said, we'd like you to join us. So then I was like, well, I'd be an absolute fool to not go there. And my agent called me up and said, George Smith's signing. So if you don't sign, I will. So I didn't really have a choice. But no, it was the greatest thing that's happened, just because I love rugby and the sport itself. But for me, the best thing is everything around it. It gives you a platform to meet people you never thought, to be in environments you never thought, go to experience things like, and just make a bond with players that is just for life. It's just fantastic in every respect.
It's family, isn't it?
Especially when they come to Yorkshire.
Pardon?
Yeah.
It's literally brotherhood and family, isn't it? Rugby in general, it has got that. But we were mentioning the other day on another podcast that, a lot of us play 15s and 7s, and we all play for different clubs all over the UK. But I don't know if you've experienced it, or people have experienced it. But when we get together for 7s, it seems completely different. It seems so much closer even than 15. Provided we play for all different clubs all over the UK. When we get together, it's like we've known each other all our lives. It's amazing, and especially with you in charge of the drinks, JK.
Well, it's probably because you're on tour. You go and you go on tour, and you're on a set tour, aren't you? On the 7th, so you go to the same competition. You're staying over in these places, so you're just going to bond with the lads, and that's the thing with rugby. There's no grudges. You see it. As I said, I love football. I love a lot of sports, but in football, there's such hatred and animosity, which is so artificial as well. Because if you ask someone, why do you hate them? They can't give you a reason. Don't get me wrong. Someone's done something to wrong you, then you have a reason to not like them. But a lot of the time, it's purely based on a geographical location. Which to me, is just stupid. Like, why am I going to hate someone because they were born 2 miles away? It doesn't make sense to me. But if someone had a genuine reason, then I'd be like, fine, fair enough. And that's the thing in rugby. You have all your derbies and everyone gets hyped up, and I love that because it's it's like claiming your turf, and I like that. But then as the game's finished, you're having meals together. You're having, you've got the opposition friends and family are sat in the exact same place as our friends and family because everyone's mixing, and there's no sort of anger or hatred towards anyone because I have respect for anyone that puts a gum shield and boots on, no matter what gender, no matter who you are, no matter what level you play at. If you put a gum shield on and step onto a pitch and play a game of rugby, I've got respect. I don't care what. How you do. The fact is, you put yourself out there. And I think people need to realise that the players don't feel like this. It's just the fans that have this opinion that there's such hatred, whereas it's not. And my family are big Leeds United fans, so I've been to Leeds Millwall. I've seen this.
But they're loving things at the moment.
Oh, yeah. Trust me, if Leeds don't get promoted, oh my word, it's going to be carnage. But I mean, you see the anger, but then on the pitch, it's like the players won't be like that. The players will just want to play a game, and look, it's good to get the fans involved and get the chance and stuff. But you need to put things in perspective.
If you look at Celtic versus Rangers, I think they'd say otherwise.
Yeah, well, that's religious based thing. So I mean, then that at least has some level of foundation. But I mean, some of it, I just think, what are you on about?
It's like Leeds, when Leeds and Bradford used to be together. Absolutely mental. Because my dad was the city steward, and because he was just as bad as the stewards. Just because he loved his club so much, he'd go stand in the away fans just because he's going to kick you off.
Just for the fun of it.
Exactly.
I've never been to a rugby ground and needed an 8 to 10 foot fence, separating the ground. That's one of the main differences.
Bath versus Bristol at the Rec is probably one of the biggest rivalries in rugby, in my opinion. And
I don't know about you guys. I always enjoy it more when there's an opposition.
Oh, it's great. It's like I think I was at Twickers watching England Ireland, and there was some Irish guy behind me giving it the big one, but then it was just like having a laugh with him afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't anything bad, but yeah, it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Why we don't.
Well, that's it. You've got to get look. I love the heckling. I love the banter. I love the chanting, and that's actually, if anything, I would like rugby to maybe have a bit more sort of big chants and things like that going. But I mean, the thing is, it's the fact that you can have a pint with them. You're sat amongst each other, giving banter, having drinks, and just enjoying it, and that's what it is. Like that's what I love. The fact that it doesn't matter who you're next to. You could be in a pub watching anything. You could be a pub in Dublin watching England Ireland, and you could just be giving banter, and everyone will love it. Yeah.
I'd say, I mean, in terms of banter and stuff like that, yeah. I mean, I went to Twickenham before, watched England Ireland again, funnily enough, and I didn't realise it was card only. So I'm there, drew all my cash out for the day. I thought, yeah, I'll do that. Got to the bar, ordered 2 pints, and then the bloke was like, oh, it's card only. And this Irish bloke I literally spoke to 10 seconds before, didn't even know his name, just chatting. He said, oh, yeah, don't beat us too badly. He went, oh, don't worry, I'll get this, and paid for it. He was nearly putting in like 15, 20 quid worth of drinks. So,
I love about that whole story is that it was Neil's big day out of Gloucester, so he withdrew all his cash. I can imagine him withdrawing all the cash and like putting it in an envelope and a big Velcro wallet.
No. What I want to know is how many beers did he have before he had to go home?
2.
One thing I was going to ask, Alex, obviously playing for Wasps, you've obviously played at Kingdome in front of the Mighty Shed. Is that? I mean, am I being biased? Is that one of the?
I mean, you could have the Mighty Shed for starters.
One of the most places you get the pick, or is there anywhere worse to play in the Premiership where you just know you're going to get both barrels off the fans all day?
Gloucester.
So Gloucester. The main reason why going to Kingdome was tough was because the pitch was horrendous. It used to just be a bog between that and Bath. Going to the Rec, as soon as you go past past December, January time, it's just a bog. You have to play him either start of the year or end of the year because it's just a bog and it's just not worth it. But in terms of Sandy Park's decent, but you can barely hear the fans. It's so windy. You hear the occasional shout, but it's so windy you can't hear anything.
Oh, that's what I say.
But no, to be fair to the Shed, they are loud, and you walk out and it's very closed in, and you've got them all chanting at you. So it is a pretty intense atmosphere. So to be honest, and they always pack it out. To be fair, they always have they are always rammed. So that makes a big difference. Sometimes you play at some grounds and there's barely anyone there. There's probably only about 5,000-6,000+. Yeah. it's just like
you mean like when we moved? You know what I mean? Like when we first moved to the Rico?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah,
when we first moved there, it's still happens anyway.
No, it's quite good. We were averaging about 17,000 before this year or whatever. We used to have an all right crowd, but
I went to the Gloucester game this season. That was a good crack, to be fair.
You wore a Gloucester shirt and you support Bath. You wore a Gloucester coat and you support Bath.
I wore a red coat, wasn't a Gloucester coat.
You disgusting.
Anyway,
that is disgraceful.
Circling back to your career, Alex. Obviously, signing for Wasps, and then obviously injuries hit. Do you want to just talk us through that? How you dealt with that? What you had? Obviously, injury. Unfortunately, is a massive part of the game we all love.
Yeah. So I'd been fortunate up until that point. I'd never had an injury really that made me miss games. I'd had a couple of knocks here and there, but I'd never had injuries that made me miss any amount of game time really. So third game in to the season, I dislocated my shoulder against Quins 10 minutes in, and that was gutting because I'd had a good season before that, and I was first choice 6. I was starting every game. I was played all throughout, and I was being told I was going to be starting 6 of the season, everything like that. And then just getting my shoulder, so I was like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And you sort of accept it. It's a ticking time bomb, as you said, with injuries. You're going to get, unfortunately, the nature of the game and the physicality aspect of it, it's going to happen at some point. You just don't know what severity. So I thought a shoulder injury, actually, in my head, I was like, it's not too bad. I was like, if it was my lower leg, then that's an issue, because I was like, if I can't dance, if I can't sort of spin through tackles or sidestep, then I won't be able to play my game. Whereas I was like, shoulder-wise, I'll be able to recover. Anyway, came back in 5 months, which I was happy with. They told me it'd be 6 months, so I came back a month early. Then playing Exeter, Jack Willis had been playing really, really well. It was his breakout season as well. He hadn't, really played much before that. And then obviously everyone saw how class he was. And then he got an injury. So he came off, and I was told, right, you're coming on. And there was only 50 minutes played. So I was like, 30 minutes. This is great. Made a couple of tackles, hit a couple of rucks. I was like, that's all I need to do to test my shoulder. This is fantastic. Yeah. Anyway, got the ball, made a line break. So I broke a couple of tackles. I was through on the fullback, went to step off my left, and at that time just got scythed down. It was really strange because I don't feel anything, but I looked down and the ball was bobbling away. The ref had blown up before I'd even hit the ground. So I was like, what the hell's happened? Because I couldn't feel anything, but I knew someone was up. Yeah. And I looked down and my leg was straight, but my knee, the whole knee joint was facing the wrong way, basically like facing and so I looked down, and like one of my closest mates, Cruzy, was just like effing hell, like just shouting, like everyone just walked away. Yeah. And I was just looking there, and I was like, no, like, what the hell does this even mean? Because like a dislocated knee, I knew it wasn't my kneecap, because a kneecap, you've seen it before, and it moves a little bit, whereas this was the whole knee joint. Yeah. And I'd never seen this before, and the Exeter Chiefs, well, the physios came on and looked at it and were like, oh my God, what do we do? Like, no one knew what to do. Shoulders, you put in, you relocate, whereas knees, the reason why people lose their legs in car crashes, not because their leg flies off, it's because you have arteries behind the knee, you have all these things happen around the knee that if it gets knocked out of place, that's when they tear, and that's when people lose their legs. So the Exeter Chiefs doctor came on. He was an A&E specialist who does car crashes and stuff like that. So he managed to push my knee in during the game, on the pitch. So I said to the physio, "Can I run this off?" And they were like, "Mate, not a chance." And they took me to hospital. And then on the way to the hospital, my parents were distraught, obviously. Yeah. My partner was on her elective. So in medical school, you go away for 8 weeks to a different country and do medicines there. So she was in Zanzibar, sunning herself on the beach, getting these Twitter updates. And then also she saw and was trying to frantically call my mum. But we're in this ambulance going to hospital, and you're hearing them saying dislocated knee, all these scans, potentially going into emergency surgery. I said to the paramedic, what could happen? They said you could lose your leg. So at this point, I was like, geez, fire it for the rest of my life with a stump. I was like, this is great. So we get to hospital, anyway, tore everything there is to tearing your knee pretty much. It was completely dust. So yeah, it's the toughest thing was getting back after that and getting home to an apartment on my own and getting the news of the MRI scan, and basically said, all right, this is the worst injury we've ever seen. Like, it's not looking good. And you just go from in your head thinking, could this be the year? I don't know, potentially could have made a push for England. Is this a chance I could have made? Whatever, you just never know what sights you could have. Playing for Wasps, being first choice at a club like Wasps, your sights are always set high. Yeah. And I thought I was playing pretty well against people, in my position and things like that, against the league. And then next thing you know, you're getting told you might never walk properly again. So it's so hard to take, but it's one that I didn't take well. I did everything wrong that you should. I tried to basically do everything opposite to being a rugby player. I ate badly. I was, just not doing right physio. I was doing everything that I shouldn't be doing because I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to have self-pity for myself. I wanted to sort of almost forget it didn't happen and almost make excuses for it. And it only is after a certain amount of time when people had spoken to me and I sort of realised, I said, if I don't give this a go, then I'll regret this for the rest of my life. I mean, look, the chances are against me, but at the end of the day, I'm still at the table. I want to place my bet and see how it falls, sort of thing. And if I don't give it a chance, I'll never know. And it really sort of Jack Willis and Marcus Garrett and Jimmy Goppeth were all injured at the same time with me, and we rallied around each other because we had our ups and downs. And sort of we guided each other through, and it was fantastic. And look, obviously mine didn't have the ending I would have liked, but I got to play at the Rico again and walk off the pitch, and that was the only thing I ever wanted to do. I mean, I knew at the time my knee, before that game, I could barely walk up the stairs the day before the game because my knee was so bad. But in my head, I was like, I have to play this game just for my peace of mind. And it was tough, but I got through it, and it's something I can now look back and say I've given it a shot, and I couldn't have done any more, and I've got nothing but happiness. And then on the flip side, I've seen how people like Jack and Jimmy worked, and to see them go out and be as world class as they were, it's great, and it gave me a huge it gave me a huge love for the game again, because sometimes you take it for granted a bit, and you take a lot of stuff for granted. You take your health for granted. You take sort of being paid as well as you do as a rugby player for granted. You take all these things for granted, and actually it was a bit of a leveler, and it sort of made me realise actually not everything's going to be rosy and handed to me on a silver plate, and you've got to step up. And actually it helped my resilience and dealing with adversity and coming through it. And I've done quite a few mental health talks, and you speak to some people, and there's some people who've set up charities because of a bereavement they've had through suicide in their family. You think that is real loss, that's real suffering, and they've come out and made a silver lining and are making people's lives better. And I'm just an injured sportsman, and I'm crying about, what have I got to cry about? I've still got my lungs, I've still got a great fiance, I've still got a great family and friends and memories and opportunities. So why can't I move on? It's about putting things into perspective. And for me, that was probably the best thing that came out of it, was just the ability to look at things and actually put things into perspective and know that, look, people will get knocked and you will have tough times again and struggle, but know that I've been able to come through it once and I can come through it again. And actually, let's put things into perspective. Is this going to kill me? No. Is this something I can move on from? Yes. Then let's move forward, sort of thing. So from a mindset point of view, it's probably the best thing happened.
That's great advice. It is great advice.
Yeah, wonderful.
At the end of the day, it's about looking at the silver lining, like you quite rightly said. And I mean, I suffered with depression in the past. I broke with my wife, went to India for a couple of weeks with my father. And it was only, I had an epiphany when I was in India. I was sat on a train station platform, and there was this beggar there, and his legs were misformed where he'd either broken them and he couldn't afford to get them fixed or anything like that. And he was literally dragging himself along the train station, asking, for money and stuff like that. But he was still smiling. And you think, Jesus Christ, if a guy like that, who's got everything against him, can still smile and still be polite and say, hello, sir, how are you? What the hell have I got to be down about? And that was a turning point for me with my depression in realising that, bloody hell, there is a lot worse things out there than what we're all dealing with. Yeah,
well, that's it. And you need to take the highs with the lows, but it's that knowledge, that, look, things are going to hit you and it's going to be tough, but the dark times aren't always going to happen forever. It's like the Queen's speech. We're going to see each other again. Things will move past this. And it's having that mindset that, look, you're going to feel low. That's life. Life can be incredibly hard, but it's knowing that if you just push through and you don't give up, but actually just battle through, and that battling through might just be having a day in bed. It might be just chatting to a mate. It might be having a cry. It might be going out and working out. It might be any number of things. Might be going out getting drunk. It doesn't matter, but it's about just riding that storm for a bit, knowing that, look, I'm going to get through it, and knowing that you're a better person for it. And I think it's always that it's about building that resilience and that deal. And you can't get that without adversity. You can't build mental strength without dealing with some level of with some adversity against you. And I think it's so important that people realise that it's a test, but you'll get the support of others. People are around you. People have suffered in some way or whatever, regardless of what you've thought, but they'll help you through it. And it's, as you said, it's getting through it, gritting your teeth and smiling or whatever. And it's about coming through and knowing that, look, it's not all bad, and it will get good. Just think of the good times, because actually they far outnumber the bad times.
I'll tell you, one hell of a party when this is over, aren't we?
Exactly.
And I think for me, obviously myself and I think most of us here have all suffered something in the past in terms of depression. I think it's getting people to know that it's okay to not be okay at times. Don't feel so bad about having to have a cry or having to talk to someone. It's okay not to be okay at the moment. Because you're not forever, and you will come out the back of it. But for this moment in time, cry it out, get drunk, do what you need to do to get to that point. Obviously, when I say get drunk, don't go on that spiral and downward. Who's going to put you into a bad place. But you're going to do those at that moment in time. But it's okay. There is people there to help you through that.
Well, that's it. It's okay to fall over. People are going to be there to pick you up and stuff like that. It will all be fine. Yeah.
But just touching on that, obviously, we spoke briefly. Obviously, everyone has their own mental battle, their own life path and struggles. We spoke briefly earlier about Andy Goo's tweet. Obviously, I think it was Sam Smith, obviously struggling with lockdown, and the veteran who raised tremendous amount of money for the NHS. What's your opinion on that? Because obviously, the argument up there was, he's a big famous singer. He's got multi-million pounds in the bank. He's isolated in a mansion, but as you all know, money does not buy you happiness or guarantee it for you. So, what's your sort of, opinion on people taking that sort of line?
It's a tough one. It's that fine balance. And I think obviously what Goody was probably trying to point out in just a poor way was having sort of that resilience and building up your mental strength to deal with adversity. And I think that's what he was pointing to Captain Moore about, that sort of era had a lot of stiff upper lip and battled through, and it was the British way and all things like that. But actually, what we've learned is from that era, there's a lot of PTSD and a lot of suffering that a lot of people did in silence. And look, there's a time for a bit of putting a brave face on, and it's a tough one, because I applaud Sam Smith as well for being able to showcase his emotions, but equally, it's about that perspective aspect and knowing that, look, there's probably a lot of people that don't have the luxury environment he has, but then again, you don't know what battles he's been through. You don't know his background. It's that old adage, don't speak about someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes, sort of thing. And it's so tough to sort of pinpoint mental health as being this one sort of area, or this is how it looks, or this is only when you should be able to suffer, because actually it could be the straw that broke the camel's back. You just don't know what was the cause of it. And look, Captain Moore is an absolute legend in capacity. He embodies the British spirit, and I think it's fantastic. And I do, as I said, I am a big advocate for mental health, but I equally think that there is a huge place for mental toughness as well. And I think sometimes you need to balance pandering with sort of support, or not pandering with a bit of like, look, let's get through this. Let's get up, lift your chin up, and let's get through this sort of thing. But then it's an incredibly difficult time for a lot of people, and he might be an absolute social butterfly and not being able to mix with a lot of people, and it might be incredibly tough, and that might be a really tough thing for him. So I just don't know. But as I said, there's, you see sometimes, and people are getting so upset, say, "Oh, I'm so depressed about this," and actually, I think that word has been thrown around willy-nilly.
It's been chucked around.
And it's like a lot of things. It's like you get called a socialist or a fascist. All these words are used so flippantly, whereas actually it loses their meaning. Like these, to suffer is a really tough word, and actually it takes a lot. People that really, it is a tough thing to overcome, and you can't ever begrudge someone because they've come out and said, "I'm suffering." It's a tough one, because I don't know much about him. I don't know if he uses that word flippantly or not, but it's probably ill-advised as a public figure to sort of slander someone.
Comments on it,
because
it does.
In terms of, go on, mate. No, just a follow-up question to that. Really. In terms of mental health as a whole, do you think the Premiership or Premiership Rugby are doing enough to look after players in terms of mental health awareness and mental issues?
It's a tough one. So it's a growing field, definitely. Mental health has probably only been prevalent for the last 10, 20 years max. It's not, people don't really, it's not been a great growing field. My partner's worked during a junior doctor in psychiatry, and even in that field, they're still discovering a lot of things, and it's still very hard to diagnose the brain and know what's going on. So it's so hard, and equally in a game where unfortunately you just have to each week go out, you're going to be slandered by fans, you're going to be called out by opposition. It's a pretty terrifying prospect to go out on TV in front of thousands of people getting called out over social media. But in some ways it's so hard because you want to support people mentally, but equally if you gave everyone the opportunity to sort of look after them and sort of shelter them, then no one would ever play. Unfortunately, you just got to sort of stick in. But then there is a big emphasis now on doctors being involved with the mental health side, having psychologists speak to and things like that. And it's a great thing to have. But it's so hard in professional sport because, as I said, it's a performance-based game. And if people aren't performing, they're going to lose contracts, they're going to get sacked, and that's going to cause that. But what can you do? You can't just give a charity out, and then it's like that. It's like how do you solve it? It's a really tough thing. And then people are coming in. They've got families who have newborn children, and they're not sleeping, and they've had a bad game, and they're getting called out. It's like, how do you balance this? But to me, the RPA, they're starting to build on it. Definitely, a few clubs definitely, I think, need to catch up with probably psychologists in house to help support lads. Because I think sometimes the biggest thing is just being able to vent, and not just vent to a fellow player, but vent to a psychologist who might be able to probe sort of things out of you. So I was lucky that the team doctor, Ralph Mitchell, he's one of the kindest blokes I know, and he was always there to speak to me when I was in my lowest points and things, and he was calling me on the phone and things like that, and he was someone I could just speak to and be honest. And sometimes you can't really say how severe you are feeling to your fellow rugby players, because actually it's incredibly open and terrifying. So actually it's some clubs definitely need to catch up with having people in house for them to speak to. But as I said, there's no answer to it, because professional sport, you need results. You're going to get called out. You can't stop social media. You can't stop results. At the end of the day, if we win, another team's lost. So what you're saying, the other 23 lads are going to be hammered in the review. What's their mental health saying? So it's so hard to really help everyone. But I definitely think there's work to be done in-house, but as a body, they are doing better. The RPA definitely helping.
Yeah, I was going to touch up on the RPA, because I know you're the representative on the board, I believe. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Obviously, so you're quite knowing what the work is of how the RPA are doing, and we've had Marcus Watson and we've had Lewis Ludlow. Both have been big advocates saying the RPA have been brilliant. What have they got in place, and what are they doing during this time at the moment? I know they helped you through your injury. What are they doing now at the moment, and what are they got going on to help players go through this time from doing full-time rugby? Essentially nothing.
So the RPA, so the Rugby Players Association. But to be honest, that was probably the greatest thing that happened to me in terms of it gave me something to help the lads out when I was injured. When you're not helping the lads on playing rugby, it was a great opportunity to sort of support the lads in different fields. Now, what the RPA is fantastic at the moment is they've been in touch, sort of helping lads with pay cuts and knowing what their legal issues are, and what their legal positions are. So that provides a lot of. It gives a. God, I can't think of the word now. It's pretty black and white. It gives lads the opportunity to know exactly where they stand, and then. They've also been offering classes, on virtual classes, like entrepreneurial classes and different things like that, which is really good. They've also got, they're also very good at, you've got every club has another RPA player development manager who you can speak with, and they can help sort of promote your LinkedIn or help you if you want further education and things like that. So they're really good at supporting lads building a career outside of rugby. Now, they're not going to hold your hand. You need to have some level of autonomy and drive, but they are very good at providing opportunities. It's also a very tough time to sort of get chatting to companies and sort of prepare shadowing and internships or job opportunities if you're retiring. But for me, they put me in touch with Josh Frappy, who's he sorted out the transition from retiring into the business world, and he's been great at putting me in touch with companies and helping my CV and things like that. They've also provide insurance and things like that. So they provide quite a wide net of protection, and they're a governing body a union that I think are vital to the game. Without them, the game, it would be a dark place for rugby.
Yeah, and it's good that obviously they're helping players set themselves up for the future, because if you look at a lot of ex-footballers, they didn't have that help to get them set off. Obviously, you've got the likes of Beckhams and Gary Lineker's landed on their feet with some great jobs going on.
But then look at that.
The majority go and retire, and they're like, "Oh shit, I don't know what to do."
Yeah,
That's what's great about what the RPA are doing is literally setting you up for the future, because obviously the lifespan of a rugby player is shorter than most. You're looking mid-30s at best, generally.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've still got a long way to retirement from anything else other than that. So it's great to see that.
Yeah, well, no question. So the, as you said, the lifespan of rugby players 10, 12 years or so, and you don't earn. I think there's less than 1% of rugby players could probably retire off what they've earned if they invested it wisely. The rest are going to have to go into a second career. So that's why, as I said, they're very good with further learning and other things like that. But the thing that rugby provides is transferable skills and the level of cognitive diversity that is hugely rewarding to companies. But it's about finding companies that are willing to take you on and grow, because we've obviously coming in, a lot of rugby players will come in their 30s and they'll have no business knowledge, but they'll have a huge set of skills like communication, leadership, sort of a lot of great things that are vital to companies. But it's about a company taking the opportunity to mentor them and get them through. And that's what the RPA have been great at, because it's a great alumni network that you can speak to companies with people like who are working there, like Deloitte, PwC, KPMG, place like that, with ex-rugby players. And you can speak to them and, they can say their pathways and what helped them in interviews and things like that. And, it's a really great network of alumni that really supporting each other. And that's another great thing with the RPA. But the skill set rugby players have, or anyone in sport for that matter, it's huge. People definitely underestimate the importance of communication and leadership and sort of that being that level of humility to accept criticism and sort of rebound and improve from it. I think the things that people don't realise how good they are for businesses. And I think that, again, is what the RPA is good at, about showcasing that to companies and sort of a hype person behind the player going to, try and get a job.
Would you say the trend of rugby players, transferable skills from rugby to perhaps sales? The reason I'm asking this, it seems to be quite a few I've seen on Facebook now, ex-rugby players going into like recruitment and sales. Do you think they've got transferable skills? Because obviously people skills and that sort of thing. Do you think that's, something that...
No question. No question. Well, it's that ability to build a rapport out of nothing, and it's that communication with people that people don't understand how effective rugby players are. Now, look, some people aren't interested in rugby, and that's fine. And that, but if they are, that's always a bonus. But if they're not, what we're still able to do is have a conversation, hold court. We're able to be in a room or a group of people and stand there, your shoulders broad, and speak and have that level of aura and level of sort of this is what I'm saying, listen.
Yeah.
And that thing that people don't realise, and it's such an intangible sort of thing that happens, but actually it's hugely powerful. We do a lot of Q&As pre and post game in front of hundreds of people, and that's been a platform for me. I've been public speakers at a few events in front of over 1,000 people at events and things like that, and these are things that I just was able to do because of rugby building me into it, from going at Rotherham and Leeds Carnegie, doing it in front of 30, 40 people, to doing it at Wasps in front of 100, 200, 300 people. And then from there, you build. And it's putting you out there, meaning that you go into these hospitality events, you're speaking with COOs and CEOs and heads of department and holding court with them. And a lot of people would be terrified of speaking, but you just stand and talk to them because you've got that level of confidence and you've got that level of sort of, you can speak with some level of clarity and sort of convey yourself pretty well. And it's a lot of things like that that's hugely valuable. And sales is obviously a profession that encompasses that entirely. And so I definitely think there's it's very similar to the military. I've met so many people in the military since I've been transitioning. My brother's in the military, so I've met quite a few of them, but they have identical mantras and skills to rugby players. Their sense of brotherhood and their sense of putting your body on the line for each other and having to be disciplined and professional, and it's a high performing, demanding environment and need results, and it's about that level of clarity and communication, all those things that sportsmen have. And the military is, a lot of companies have these military pathways, and what they're introducing now is sports pathways intrinsically with the military ones. And actually it's something that I think the next generation of rugby players are going to be hugely successful in transitioning into, because I think people are now starting to realise actually these are hugely valuable skill sets.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on that note, thank you very much for your time, Alex.
Whoa.
And he
wants his quick scenario.
Well,
go on then.
Sorry, Alex. I tried to save you, Alex. I tried to save you.
No, that's fine.
Well, a couple of normal questions first. What would you say is your best experience in rugby?
Scenario.
It's not a scenario, Neil.
Best experience in rugby. See, I've probably got two. So okay. I'll give you one. Was at Rotherham. Was just my second season. Was probably my second season at Rotherham. Now I know that's quite a broad thing, but the bond of the lads there. We had lads on $5,000 a year, on absolute pennies. But the bond and the socials and the mind. Oh my God, the socials were carnage. It was just It's probably my favourite ever time playing rugby. It was one of those that I enjoyed every second of it. You with your closest mates, you're partying all the time, you're winning games, and it was just great. And then probably the next best experience of my life was playing at the Aviva Stadium in the quarterfinals of Europe. That was amazing. Nice. Against Leinster, so that was class.
Brilliant. And on the flip side, what's the worst day you've had at the office? What's a day you'd happily forget?
Apart from the injuries, are obviously pretty obvious. Actually, probably the last game I ever started in the Prem against Worcester, when I got melted by Christensen, Scotland, Williamson, the lad that went to the NFL, and that was put on viral on BT, or when I got stripped by Itoji and that went viral on BT. One of those two, just because I'm still getting tagged.
Won't find them for the highlight reel at the start of this show.
Honestly, I just get tagged in them all the time. Still, I'm just like, for God's sake, I did so many good things on a rugby pitch, and those are the two things I'm getting that my kids will probably see on YouTube.
It's always the worst things that get brought up. They'll never keep bringing up and reminding you of the best games you've ever played. It's always the worst one.
No.
One of the last shows we got called fuckers from Alex Payne because we've stitched him right up with his mess up.
Yeah. No, he wasn't best pleased about that. But then JK fucked up his intro, so Alex laughed his tits off after that because
I don't do mine live.
One last question from me. I've been asking this with a lot of our guests recently. We've had some very interesting answers. I'm gonna post a scenario for you now. Obviously, we're all very aware of COVID-19 lockdown situation. Now, this is the situation. You're on lockdown for 2 weeks. You're in one house. You cannot leave at any point, not even for your hours exercise a day. You're having food brought to you day in, day out. Who would be the person that you've either played with or against that you would least like to have in isolation with you for 2 weeks, and why?
Least.
Yeah.
Oh.
Good chance to throw someone under the bus here.
They will be tagged.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who's absolutely dirty as anything.
Well,
It's going to be good.
dirty as anything.
I don't know. I'd say he's actually a friend of mine, a lad called Max Argyle, and I used to live with him. But if we weren't able to go out the house, he was the oddest man I've ever met in my life. I love the bloke, but I think after 2 weeks, if we just could do nothing else, I think one of us would have put a pillow over each other's face when we were asleep or something. But he's actually a mate. But and I lived with him, but he was a very, very odd bloke.
Perfect.
No,
Well, yeah.
I did. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex. And hopefully we'll get you on again soon.
Yeah, well.